Welcome viewers. Today I'll be discussing about elements of an organizational design. Here we will understand why there are limited sets of structural configurations, and further we'll be discussing about the 5 basic parts of any organization, introducing 5 basic structural configurations and understanding the common elements of an organization, explaining further the simple structure. So, to begin with, why we need to study about organizations, and is every organization unique? While there may be millions of organizations today in the world, there certainly are not million different forms or configurations. Like you have fingerprints, many have common elements that once identified allow for the development of a classification framework. The purpose of this module is to build a classification framework and recommend preferred structural designs to managers. So, let me first discuss about organizational designs. What are these designs? Organizational designs are the frameworks for structuring a company to achieve its strategy or business objectives. There are few common types like hierarchical organizations with a clear command and which are mostly followed in traditional organizational structures. Flat structures with few layers, mostly adopted in agile or flexible organizations. Functional structures are grouped by the expertise of professionals. Divisional structures are those where there is a departmentalization or divisions by product and by region or geography. Team based organizations are those which have cross functional divisions where there are teams, cross functional teams. Matrix type of organizational structures are also existing which have dual reporting relationship, and network or virtual type of organizations where the part of the employees are outsourced. They are connected organizations, the structure, each balancing a specialization, coordination, control, and adaptation to fit with the organizational goals, size, culture, the technology, and the environment. The best choice aligns structure with the business objectives, business strategy, not a single best type exists. So, we should understand why organizational design matters. It helps in driving strategy execution, clarifies accountability and decision rights, who is holding the authority, decision making power. It impacts speed, cost, and innovation. Let us discuss some examples. Like Tata Groups have redesigned governance to balance autonomy and control. Amazon has reorganized team based structures to improve the speed, efficiency of transactions, and customer focus. Let us also discuss the case of standard configurations. There has been a growing search to identify some common organizational types or configurations. Henry Mintzberg has defined a limited set of organizations based on certain organizational design elements. Every configuration would contain a complex cluster of elements that are internally cohesive, and presence of some elements suggests that reliable occurrence of others. There are 5 key elements on which organizations have differed, and each one could be related as high, moderate, or low. There could potentially be different configurations if the elements were unrelated. So, the focus is that environment may encourage only relatively few organizational forms to survive. To be cost efficient and competitive, an organization may need to adopt structural properties similar to those of other organizations in its industry or its market niches that are following similar strategies. For example, the extensive use of division, standardization, employment of unskilled personnel to do repetitive tasks tend to be associated with high formalization. Internal consistencies will lead to reduction in performance. So, over a period of time, organizations should develop a set of structural characteristics that will fit well together. So, this should lead to limited set of configurations in which internal consistencies are achieved. Organizational decision makers are not immune from the influence of other organizations or decision makers. Just as what we wear, what we eat, and what we drive has been influenced by the peers, the media, and other sources, so similarly, decision makers are also likely to think what is current and progressive. If the current fashion or the current trend favors adaptive, decentralized organizational structure, there will always be a pressure on the organizations to be more contemporary. So, let us first understand what are the common elements in organizations. While there is no universally agreed upon framework for classifying organizations, there is a standard given by Henry Mintzberg. Mintzberg has argued that there are five basic parts existing in any organization: the operating core, the strategic apex, the middle line, technostructure, and the support staff. The operating core consists of employees who perform the basic work which is related to production of various products and services. And the strategic apex consists of the top level managers who are charged with overall responsibility for the organization. The middle line consists of managers who connect the operating core to the strategic apex. Technostructure consists of analysts who have the responsibility for effecting certain forms of standardization in the organization. And the support staff, people who fill the staff unit, who provide indirect support services for the organization. So, with this, we have developed a common elements in organizations can be placed together in the strategic apex, like in entrepreneurial organizations, simple organizations, technostructure, machine bureaucracy. The support staff is mostly dominant in adhocracy, or middle line is mostly dominant in the divisionalized form of organizational structure. Operating core is mostly prominent in the professional bureaucracy or bureaucratic organizations which are highly innovative. So, the basic parts of an organizational structure have been given by Henry Mintzberg. Any one of these parts can dominate in any organization depending on which part is in control. Is a given structural configuration is likely to be used. According to Mintzberg, there are five distinct design configurations and each one has a domination by one of the basic parts. If control lies with the operating core, decisions are decentralized. So, this creates a professional bureaucracy. When the strategic apex is dominant, control is centralized and the organization is simple organizational structure. If middle management has a control, you will find the groups of essentially autonomous units operating in a divisional structure. Where the analysts in the technostructure are dominant, control will be through standardization and the resultant structure will be a machine bureaucracy. Finally, in situations support staff rules, control will be via mutual adjustment and the adhocracy arises. Each one of these design configurations has its own unique set of pros and cons. And summary of the Mintzberg's five organizational configurations, which have resulted in simple structure, machine bureaucracy, professional bureaucracy, divisionalized form, and adhocracy, has been further explained. In a simple structure, coordination is through direct supervision, and the key part is a strategic apex. It's highly centralized and low formalization, for example, in case of startups and small firms. Machine bureaucracy, coordination is basically on the standardization of processes. The key part is technostructure or there is high formalization, centralization, and examples are manufacturing firms or banks. In case of professional bureaucracy, the coordination is done by standardization of skills and the key part is operating core. There is decentralization, professional control, for example, in case of hospitals and universities. In divisional form of organizations, The coordination is by standardized output. The output is standardized, like in the key part is middle line, and decentralized divisions are there. For example, in case of large conglomerates. Adhocracy is an example where there is coordination is through mutual adjustment or mutual understanding. There are teams which are dominant, high decentralization and innovation. There are examples are IT firms, research and development and consulting firms. Now let us focus on understanding what is a simple structure, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the simple structure, and when do we use a simple structure. What do a small retail store, an electronic firm run by hard driving entrepreneur, and an airlines in the midst of company wide pilot strike have in common? They probably all utilize the simple structure. The simple structure is centralized and often autocratic, with power which is arising out of the strategic apex. Control is exerted by the chief executive or the small influential executive team. Due to the simplicity, the structure can be flexible and sometimes informal, with a strongly defined sense of mission. In a simple structure, there is low complexity, it has little formalization, and has authority which is centralized with a single person. As this simple structure is depicted best as a flat organization with an organic operating core, and almost everyone reporting to one person or the strategic apex, decision making power is centralized. For example, in a store, in any store, there is an owner and there are several stores which are located in different locations. So, all that is managed by the owner. It illustrates an application of a simple structure where the hypothetical organization, say for example, ABC is a retail store, is a flat organizational structure. Decision making is basically informal. All important decisions are taken by the owner, are centralized and in the hands of the senior executive or the owner, who because of low complexity is able to take key information readily and also act rapidly whenever there is a need. So, the senior executive or the owner of the firm is exercising maximum control. The executive in the simple structure typically have a wide span of control. The strength of the simple structure lies in its simplicity. It's very simple and fast and flexible and requires little cost to maintain. There are no layers, there is a wider span of control. Accountability is very clear as everyone responds to the manager. There is a minimum amount of goal ambiguity. Roles are very clear because members are able to identify readily with the organization's mission, and it's fairly easy to see how one's actions contribute to organizational goals. The weakness of simple structure is concentration of power, of course, can work against the organization's effectiveness and survival. As the organization grows, it becomes more complex, and one person or the owner holding maximum power will limit other managers to take decisions on their own. So, the simple structure, in fact, has been described as the riskiest structure hinging on the health and whims of one individual. One uh, it literally destroys organizations' decision making power. When should we use simple structure? When we are likely to adopt a simple structure, if the organization is small and it is in the formative stage of development. If the organization's environment is simple and dynamic, if the organization faces high hostility or a crisis, then the manager can probably take up the issues in order to avoid any ambiguity or confusion or to have any kind of goal further crisis to occur. If the senior manager is also the owner, or in that case also the organization should have a simple structure. If the senior executive wants to hold power, to have wield maximum power, or has control power, or has power thrust upon him by his or her subordinates, in that case, the organization adopts simple structure. The simple structure is effective when the number of employees are less. Small size usually means less repetitive work in the operating core. So, standardization is less attractive, informal communication is convenient. As long as the structure remains small, the one person can effectively oversee all activities, be acknowledgeable about key problems, and carry out important decisions. Simple and dynamic environment tend to be associated with the simple structures, flat organizations with centralized decision making, and organic operating core. A simple environment uh, can be easily understood by a single individual and therefore enables the individuals to control decision making effectively. A dynamic environment requires an organic structure so that it can react to unpredictable contingencies. Regardless of the size, an organization suddenly confronts a hostile environment. Management is likely to resort to simple structure. The reason is very logical. When survival is threatened, top management wants to exercise control. For example, when there are crises like the Maggie issues or when the Tata Motors Tata Nano caught fire, these are instances where the top management wields power because you have to manage the situations under your control. When any kind of crisis emanates, so the top management takes exercises control, top management wields power in order to avoid any kind of ambiguity. Further, since the hostility disrupts the standard operating procedures, the SOPs are likely to be suspended. The result is a temporary flattening out of organizations. So, our discussion of the power control position in the previous discussions led to the prediction that senior decision makers would have a strong preference for simple structure. Why? Because there is an excellent vehicle for concentrating power in a single place. Large size typically excludes the possibility of a permanent simple structure. This configuration should be used by medium and small sized organizations where power is concentrated. And a look at most of the small and medium sized owner managed firms confirms the prediction. Owner managers have considerable power or they have control over their units or business organizations. They assert that power may be maintained, power is maintained in a structure that allows them to have greatest control. So, that of course is a simple structure. Senior executives does not crave for power if subordinates do not want to be involved with the decision making. They are forced to take control in their own hands. The result is the same as power has been sought by the executives and decision making becomes centralized in one person at the top and the organization takes on simple structure. It has been proposed that classic case of the simple structure is the entrepreneurial firm where it continually searches for risky environments where the large and established organizations are little hesitant to venture into. These entrepreneurial firms are usually very small and they can be flexible or organic, and their entrepreneurs can maintain tight control because they do not want to lose control over the situations, or they want to take decisions within their purview. Of course, the high risk translates into a high attrition rate. Thus, entrepreneurial firms rarely stay that way for a long term. As the organization grows, so they discard their simple structure to take up new forms of organizational structure. As the successful ones tend to grow and become increasingly risk aversive. So, the simple structure tends to be replaced by the machine or professional bureaucracy. In order to conclude this lecture, the focus of the discussion was mostly on the case of standardized organizational structures. We have also discussed about the basic parts of any organization. Further, we have discussed in details about what a simple structure is, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the simple structure, and finally, when should an organization adopt a simple structure. Thank you.